So today, Chapter 27, aka Tools of Torment, was released and implemented into the live game, and in my opinion, it's one of the most disappointing chapters to date. Let me explain why. Now, first and foremost, I just want to emphasize the fact that this is my opinion. If you enjoy this chapter, that's great, but to be honest, I don't, and I know a lot of other people share that sentiment. If anyone wants to debate with me about this, feel free to leave a comment, as I'm pretty passionate about this, as well as Dead by Daylight in general, and wouldn't mind a discussion about this if anyone wants to have one. With all that out of the way, let me introduce my first point. It's an original chapter. Now, let me be clear, I'm all for original chapters, and some of my favorite killers that have come into this game are original, like Oni. But we were explicitly promised by Behavior that they would strive for a quota of 2 originals and 2 licenses every year. And with this chapter being original, that quota was not met. Obviously, this is not going by typical years, since Chapter 27 is the first chapter in 2023. But in Dead by Daylight's year system, marked by their anniversaries, this was the last chapter in Year 7, which began on the 6th anniversary and will end right before the 7th. In that time frame, we have had Roots of Dread, Project W, Forged in Fog, and now Tools of Torment. Only one of those, Project W, was licensed. And on the topic of Project W, that brings me to my second point. Our only license in Year 7 was a repeat license. We already had a Resident Evil chapter for the 5th anniversary, which introduced Nemesis, Jill, and Leon. 15 months later, Project W was released, which again was a repeat license. That means our last new license was Sadako Rising, aka Ringu, which was brought into the game exactly a year ago now. Even worse, that chapter was announced in mid-December of 2021, so that was the last time a new license was announced for the game. Therefore, it has been almost 15 months since a new license was announced for Dead by Daylight. Furthermore, considering we won't be getting a new chapter until the 7th anniversary, 3 months from now, it'll mean that there will be almost an 18-month gap between new licenses for Dead by Daylight, which is still assuming that the 7th anniversary is a licensed chapter. As someone who likes making speculations about future licenses to come into the game, I'm sure you can see how this is a little infuriating. Next, the killer's design. Admittedly, this is more of a personal issue I have, and I don't think it's completely valid criticism, but I still think it has some merit. After I watched the teaser for the chapter, I pretty much immediately knew it was going to be original, but I was still excited. I thought there was potential of a killer being some murderous robot, some vile and torturous machine, and instead we get a completely normal human with just about half her face covered by a mask. Now, in and of itself, I suppose the Skull Merchant's design is alright, but I just wish that Dead by Daylight, a horror game and self-proclaimed horror hall of fame, had more, well, horrific characters. Take the Dredge, for example, the game's only real non-humanoid killer, with a pretty terrifying and unique design. An argument could even be made for Demogorgon, which is, albeit still a humanoid creature, definitely one of the more monstrous and animalistic killers. But of course, the Stranger Things license was removed, but that's not something I blame Behavior for, as I'm almost completely certain this removal was not up to Behavior, but was instead Netflix's decision. But I digress. I hoped for a more horrific, machine-slash-robot-esque killer, and instead we just got another human. And all of this, and I haven't even touched the killer's power. Now, I know there are some defenders of the Skull Merchant's power, and a lot of people find her fun, and I respect that. Personally, though, I find her power to at least be a little lackluster. The idea behind it is cool, but I think the execution is a little poor, and it just doesn't feel like it's very strong, or can be used to great enough effect to warrant her being picked over the majority of the other killers in the game. I won't get much more into it than that, since I don't think I'm qualified to talk in depth about her power, since I only played a few games as her on the PTB. For what it's worth, I think she's okay to play against, at least in my minimal experience. At the very least, there are killers I dread much more going against. And one last thing, an honorable mention if you will. Her Mori. Now, to be fair, her Mori did get changed for live release, and it's better, but considering how it was on the PTB, that's not saying much. Here's the Skull Merchant's Mori on the PTB, which released 3 weeks ago, side by side with Freddy's Mori, which was made 5.5 years ago. Feel free to skip ahead using chapters if you've already seen this. Then here's her new Mori, side by side with her old Mori. Again, skip ahead if you've already seen these. As I'm sure you can see, it has noticeable changes and improvements, but fundamentally it's still the same. It has more emotion and expression, but it's still pretty meh by today's standards, especially compared to some modern Moris like Dredge or Knight. One last thing I just remembered while editing this, can we please talk about how the Skull Merchant's chase music is literally just a fucking washing machine? Well, that's about it from me. If you enjoyed hearing me rant about how much I dislike this chapter, make sure to like the video, and maybe even subscribe if you really liked it and want to see more content from me. I upload full videos at least every week, if not more, and shorts every 2 days. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.